In this video, we're going to take a look at getting data into a computer. First of all, let's just give ourselves a few variables here with some values in them. So George is a string with in the variable name, and equals 21, and hit enter, and age is the integer value 21. Okay. And now I'm going to do birth year equals 2021 this year minus age. Okay, and hit enter. And now I want to see what birth year is, and it's 2000. Okay, so we're making a simplifying assumption there that the person has already had their birthday this year. So this code works fine. We can do something now like print okay. Be careful when you get to the end. Make sure that your curly brackets match up and you've got a valid variable name inside of each one. They will show up different from the string characters. They'll show up in white. Make sure you've got the F at the beginning. Make sure you've got opening and closing quotation marks. And make sure you have the parenthesis on the end to end the print function. So I'm going to hit enter here now. And it says George is 21 years old and was born in the year 2000. Okay? Now, that works fine, except most of the time you don't build the data into your program. Usually you get the data from somebody sitting at a keyboard, or even more often you're going to get it from some file someplace, whether it's on the internet or on a local disk or on a USB drive or whatever. So we need a way to get data into the computer. So we're going to change the value of name. We're going to do an input instruction that says, what is your name? Okay. Now, as you can see, input is the name of a function, and this is the argument that we're passing. What you pass to the input function as an argument is a string that is what you want to appear as a prompt for the person who is using the program. So I'm going to hit enter now. And it executes this instruction, and instead of George, I'm going to put John instead. Notice when you're typing stuff in from the keyboard, you do not have to put the quotation marks around it. Everything that gets typed in from the keyboard is considered a string. Okay? And now I'm going to do another one. Okay? And I'm going to type in a different number. I'm going to type in 25 and hit enter. Okay, and now if I type in name and hit enter, it says that's John. Notice the apostrophes around it. And if I type in age and hit enter, I get 25. And notice that that is also a string. It's got quotation marks around it, or apostrophes around it. And anything that is entered from the keyboard is a string no matter what. It may look like a number like this one does, but it is stored internally as a string. If I try to go up here now, and I'm going to hit the up arrow key a few times until I get up to this print statement. If I try to print this out, actually it will work, because I can put a string in for age. Okay. It says John is 25 years old and was born in the year 2000. Whoops, he was not born in the year 2000. We need to recalculate the birth year. I'm going to hit the up arrow key quite a few times this time. So birth year equals 2021 minus age. Let's go ahead and hit enter. Now, you can probably guess I'm going to have a problem here. This is an integer. This is not an integer. You can't subtract a string from an integer, and that's exactly what's going to tell us when we hit the enter key here. So the error message is unsupported operand types for subtraction. Okay, and the types are integer and string, and so it's telling us that it doesn't support subtraction between the type integer and the type string. They've got to be both integers or both floating point numbers or a combination of the two. You can subtract, you can mix data types between integers and floats to do subtraction, but it doesn't make any sense to subtract a string. So what we have to do first is we have to convert age into an integer, and the int function will do that for us. Now if I type age, the apostrophe is not going to be there. It's just going to be an integer. And now if I go back up and I try to do that instruction that prints everything out, let me see, I don't want to do that first. I want to do the calculating where's birth year? Okay, I want to calculate the birth year, and then I'll print everything out. Okay, now we'll just check on birth year, and it's going to be 1996, which is 25 years ago. Okay, now if I do my big long print command with the F string and print it out, John is 25 years old and was born in the year 1996. Okay, so when we do, I'm going to do quite a bit of scrolling here, I think. I want to do the input instruction for the age. There it is right there. So I say, what is your age? Okay, and I'm going to type in 25, and that's going to be stored as a string, apostrophes. Okay, and I need to do age equals int of age. If I want a number from the keyboard, it's always going to come as a string. I'm always going to have to convert it into the appropriate data type. The apostrophes are gone. It's an integer. If I do type of age, it should come back and tell me that it's an int. Okay. Now, since I know that the user is going to be typing in an integer here, I can take the line where I convert the string into an integer and the line where I input the age as a string, and I can combine those into one. Okay, so let's go down here. I'm going to hit the up arrow a few times. Right there. So here I am asking them to input a string representing their age. I want to take that string, so this whole thing here is going to be whatever they type in as a string. So if I type in 25, it's going to be a string 25. That whole thing is what I want to convert. So I'm going to do int, and now I'm going to go to the end of the line and do another parenthesis, and it is going to read in the 25 as a string. It's immediately going to convert it into an integer. Let's go ahead and run it. And I'm going to type 25 and hit enter, and I'm going to type age, and notice there are no apostrophes around it. Okay, I'm going to hit the up arrow key a couple of times to get back to that instruction, and this time I'm going to do a float. So I'm going to take whatever they type in, I'm going to convert it into a floating point number. Let's go ahead and hit enter, and I'm going to type in 25 and hit enter. It's going to convert the string 25 into the floating point number 25. If I ask for age now, it should be 25.0, and it is. If I want to know what the type of age is, it's going to tell me that it's a float. Okay, so the main thing to remember here is when you're getting stuff from the keyboard, if you are getting an integer, it's going to be input as a string, and you will have to explicitly convert it into an int before you can do arithmetic on it. If they're typing in a floating point number, then you're going to read it in as a string that looks like a floating point number, and then you're going to have to explicitly convert it into a floating point number using the float function. Okay? Input is always going to be strings, and you're always going to have to convert them into numbers. Okay? Let's try one more thing. So you can use the int function to convert a string into an integer. You'd also use it to convert a floating point number. If I had a floating point number in here, you can convert that into an integer as well. Same thing with float. Now, what happens if I do int of a Boolean? Can I convert that into an integer? And it appears that I can at least convert true into an integer, and I can also convert false into an integer. And we're not really going to need to make much use of that, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. When we get to another class on how the data is represented internally inside of a computer, this will make a whole lot more sense. But that's how you do input from the keyboard and that's how you convert that input into the appropriate data type.